Bigger than capes.
Give me some sadness.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Oh, dry.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. I'm Zach. I'm joined by Angela, Matt, and Will.
I am.
Hello.
What's
Hello.
up?
What's up?
What is up?
The sky.
Yeah.
I think we've done that before, but hey.
Yeah,
I think everyone has.
just hit the same jokes every few months.
Yeah, on rotation.
Yeah, it's called.
What's up is
continuity.
4 new comics.
Indeed, in our September roundup. I know what month it is, Angela. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Just checking.
Or when this comes out, what month it was.
Ooh, yeah.
Who knows when we've recorded this?
Yeah. We're speaking to you from the mists of time.
I know what time it is. I know what month we're in. I know what's happening. So, guns blazing. Let's talk about some comics, yo.
Let's crack on.
Yeah. Comics.
So, we've got 3 books from Image this month. I'm going to introduce you to the first one. First one's called Old Dog, number 1. It's written
That's
and
one old dog.
it's written. Declan Shalvey is the writer and artist, and the letterer is Clayton Cowles, and I can't find any other credits to suggest anyone else did anything else on this. So I'm thinking Deck is also our colorist here.
It was edited by Heather Antos. That's the only other name.
And it was edited by Heather Antos. I was just going to say that. Basically, Old Dog is about Jack Lynch, who works for the CIA, and this is meant to be his last mission. The higher-ups don't like him, so he's kind of just on surveillance duty in a van with all the screens and such, whilst Rottweiler is out on some kind of mission in a trench coat, climbing buildings and jumping off rooftops and such. Something goes wrong, and the guys who are kind of monitoring this with Jack, let's call one of them Charlie, because that's his name, and also Mustache Man, who isn't allowed a name.
Too much of a jerk.
Have apparently been given, secret orders that if something goes down, they're to jump in and save the day. When they do that and don't come back, Jack also follows them into the building, finds a weird old looking machine, and chaos ensues. And without giving too much away beyond that, that's kind of the bulk of this. Immediate thoughts for me. One, in a 10-minute period, Charlie manages to leave the van, go inside, and grow a beard. That was really important to me when reading this, and it's kind of meant that my speculation of how that could have happened is running wild and probably completely unnecessary.
It may come back in a later issue. It may be a really important plot point that will come to fruition later.
Yeah, I hope it is. I don't know if it will be, but I hope it is. But yeah, I think this looks like it's going to be the start of a kind of Black Ops spy thriller type thing.
Plenty of sort of time-based sci-fi thrown in.
Yeah, it feels like that. Although I'm also not entirely sure which direction it's going in, especially with Declan Shalvey having time before time. Or
yeah,
I'm not sure if is he writing it at the moment, or is he just watching?
I think he's back. Yeah, I don't think he ever left. Rory McConville. No, hang on. I can't remember which one of them went off for a while. They're both back on it now. Can
Right.
confirm.
So if this does end up having like a time travel angle, that is weird to have 2 time travel books from the same person at the same time. But I'm also prepared to see where that goes, and I can see that maybe this is an idea spawned from already having one time travel book. I know sometimes you'll have ideas that don't all fit together. But I'm getting definite sci-fi time travel kind of vibes. I assume that's how you grow a beard in 10 minutes.
I think I'm getting a sort of sense of kind of time dilation. I mean, it sort of insinuates that Jack comes out of this with some sort of ability.
Yes.
But I found that a little confusing as to exactly what was happening. I mean, he sort of and then re-ages
Yes.
very quickly.
Yeah.
So it sets up a couple of mysteries kind of spanning from that. Obviously, what's the machine? What are his powers?
Is Jack Rottweiler?
I think so.
I thought so.
Yeah, I think the big facial scar, I think, is the hint, but you could be right. That could be a bit of a ruse.
Because I actually thought initially, rather than this being the observation, like that's what they were watching, that mission that was going on, that was going to be the mission that went wrong.
I thought that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes, well, actually, no, he's Benjamin Buttoning or whatever, like, and therefore we can't really tell necessarily when anything kind of is in this timeline currently. So I actually kind of enjoyed that as a bit of a twist, but it's a book that I know we say this a lot, but I think we'll read better in trade, because of like the shifting, like currently the shifting character designs and stuff and ages and stuff make the book like both like difficult to follow in a way that's clearly deliberate, but it's still difficult to follow.
Yeah.
It feels quite time before time. It definitely, you can tell this is the same guy who's doing time before time. That is, it's just like, I don't know, it's not directly time before time, but it's so time before time in just the way it reads and its feeling and the wibbly wobbly timey-wimey weird coincidences, aging, de-aging, whatever you want to call it. It almost feels like this is an alternate universe of time before time. In a good way, don't get me wrong, in a good way. But having ploughed through 16, 17 issues of Time Before Time, this just feels like a weird extension of that. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yes.
But for me, it didn't feel quite as original as maybe it would if he wasn't also working on the time travel book.
I say I'm not sure I'm not sure it's necessarily going to be time travel. I think it's going to be something different.
Weird healing factor time travel.
Yeah, well, I don't think we, as you were saying, where the other bit is kind of timeless, where he's running the mission. But I don't think that's in the past either. I think that is.
No, that's after his coma.
Yeah.
Stuff like when they because they reveal his partner at the end, who is his now 8 years older than she was when he went in the coma daughter.
Yeah.
Like, who he's missed the sort of life of.
Controversially with this, and feel weird saying it, but gonna have to because it was immediately there. And I know they worked together at Marvel and Image in the past. This is the first Declan Shelvey book I have read that feels very much like a Warren Ellis book.
Okay.
See that?
Feels really like
Yeah.
global frequency, planetary-esque in the like shady government organizations and weird powers and and
Yeah, I see that.
not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, there's obviously a Warren Ellis shaped storytelling hole in comics right now. Or is he back? I think he might be back.
It's a difficult road to walk, that one.
It is a difficult one. Warren Ellis bad, obviously, but
yeah,
some of his books good. And I feel like with Shelby having worked with him on like Moon Knight and Injection and stuff, it is probably natural that there's a little bit of an influence on his writing style.
A couple of just individual bits that really stood out to me is I like that the machine or whatever it is, the technology has a real like Mobius vibe to the art style, and I like how it expressed a sort of delay in time when you have an empty speech bubble and the words for that speech bubble follow in like the next panel. Just so it was super effective at controlling the flow of time during all that section. Good art is what I'm saying.
Yes. And it's weird because obviously the last few Declan Shelby things he's written and not drawn, other than that one issue of Time Before Time. So it's kind of weird seeing his art again after I've kind of ended up just associating him with the way Time Before Time looks over the last year or so.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost forget he's an artist these days.
He is a good artist though when he does the art. Art good.
Props to Clayton Cowles as well. I feel like praised Declan Shelby for something that Clayton Cowles did.
But Clayton Cowles is one of the good ones.
One of your many lettering brethren.
He's in my top 5.
Wow.
I'm sure we're all waiting, with bated breath to find out who the top 5 Angela letterers are. We'll all pick an area. One of us will rank writers. One of us will do a top 5 letterers. One of us will do a top 5 colorists.
Colorizers.
I don't know. Inkers. Pencilers. We'll recruit a 5th person so we can do pencils and inkers. This has gotten weird.
So, shall we? Actually, before we move on, Demolition Man. It reminded me the tiniest bit of Demolition Man, partially because of the whole theory that Stallone's partner was originally intended to be his daughter in Demolition Man, and then instead they ended up having sex. And
fingers crossed, Matt?
Yeah, but they're not.
Yeah.
That was originally in the script. And
I mean, if that doesn't sell you, I don't know what does. But I think overall, there's enough here, I think, to kind of interest me to come back. I say the power thing is kind of vague, but there's a bit of a cliffhanger at the end that suggests there's even more mysterious goings on. I think there's probably enough to give this another couple of issues to see if it really sticks the landing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Then shall we move on to the least we can do?
Mm-hmm.
So, the least we can do is also from Image. Written by Yolanda Zanfardino, with art by Elisa Romboli, edited by Laura Tavashati, and with the vague production by Craig Arnett. So it is a UK London set, post-apocalypse with magic and mutants and all that good stuff. The main character is a girl called Uriel, who has basically set herself on the course of trying to change the world for the better in the aftermath of this societal collapse and the coming of magical power elements called mediums. And she comes from like a family of the military dictatorship that runs the UK now. It feels okay. Does it feel weird to see them in this kind of semi-medievally kind of looking place, referring to it as the United Kingdom?
That's what Camden's like all the time.
That got me just a little bit. But yeah, so she's kind of stolen this magical element from her family and has set off to try and do good with it rather than continuing the systems of oppression, and joined up with the underground as like a researcher and someone and someone who is coming with knowledge and idealism to it. It seems like it could be pretty fun. It seems like it's going to have some interesting sort of stuff to look at about sort of individual morality cast against kind of wider societal views of kind of like right and wrong and ethics and stuff like, and challenging a system that you're raised in and sort of the cost that can kind of come from that for an individual. Yeah, I'm liking the look of it. The power sort of system of it seems like it could be interesting. It at the moment, like it looks a little weirdly, it looks a little X-Men-y, but that might be just because we have like a room full of danger, and people being trained to use their powers their way and stuff like. I was very much like, okay, so this is like, yeah, this is the Academy for Gifted Youths, down here. But like, it's got a pretty good design aesthetic to it in a way that kind of like reminds me of like Shadowrun, where you've got like vaguely kind of unexplained like mutants, like you've got people with like devil horns going around, you've got like other little weird magical things. It's like, you know, where this kind of intersection of reality with some sort of other source.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you for the most part. I think probably my favorite part about the book is the character design and the clothing. Yeah. I think when you meet the 3 people who are going to be on her battle team, on Uriel's battle team, they just look cool. And I although it is kind of hokey, I do dig that sort of proto-Victorian like design in all of the art stuff. I also agree with you that I kind of like the magic system in this. It seems to be like minerals of some sort have been imbued with power. But again, going along with that same kind of class system, the more precious the mineral, it seems, the greater the power. But there's obviously something going on in there. I think my only drawback is they try and pack in loads into this first issue, and I think it kind of disrupts the pacing of the story. There's loads and loads of ideas, loads of good characters, but you don't spend enough time really with any of them. You don't get to know anybody. It's very much set up, but I think it tells you a lot about this world. I think it's pretty funny in some parts. Like, I think it nails some of its jokes. So yeah, mostly pretty successful. Good stuff.
Yes, I'm gonna go on a different track as my screen freezes up. Oh dear, come on, laptop. There we go. Right, I've caught up with everyone. We'll just move really quickly. I'm going to take a slightly different tack because we said that Old Dog read very like a Declan Shalvey book, and this reads very like a Yolanda Zanfantino and Elisa Romboli book. So, Alyssa, I apologise for mispronouncing your name. Yeah, it feels very much in the same vein as, you know, Alice in Leatherland and A Thing Called Truth, in that you have this slightly bookish, retiring, shy female character and these tougher or worldly female characters. And of course, the shy, retiring one is obviously going to learn things through the tough ones, and the tough ones are going to learn things from the shy and retiring one. And I really like that as a trope. It's worked really well in Alice in Leatherland. It's worked really well in A Thing Called Truth. So I'm up for more of that. So that was what I latched onto. There is nice world building. It is, like you said, there is a lot there. There's a lot of questions. We don't know how exactly she got the stone and how it came to be in her possession. Presumably she stole it, but we don't know what happened there. I like that she wanders around looking a bit like Red Riding Hood at the start, the little red cloak and a little hood up, and clearly has no clue about she's sort of really out of her element, but she's determined to do it because it's the least she can do. And I like that we have that, like the last panel is the title. But yeah, it's quite, she's a very sweet character. It's quite a cool setup. It does sort of feel like these creators now tackling fantasy world, and I'm up for their take on fantasy world. They've done Road Trip. They've done, I don't even know what, that's the one. Yeah, Alice in the Wonderlands of Romance. So this is like Fantasyland. So it's, working your way through genres with, good art, good writing, weird setup. But yeah, it was good. It was nice. It was pleasant. Yeah. I enjoyed.
I very much agree. It's interesting after 3 books kind of grounded in the real world to see them kind of take on the unreal world. I do like that every one of their books has been set in a different place as well. Like the Alice in Leatherland is San Francisco, and then there's like the road trip element of the other one, A Thing Called Truth. And then this is the UK, and Yolanda's solo book. What was that called? Midnight Radio, I think.
I'm afraid you're on your own there, but
Midnight Radio, I think, was kind of set in somewhere in America. So it's nice to have. I think we get a lot of comics that are in America, and obviously having European creators helps. But it's nice to see a weird version of London in comics. I agree that, like, I think artwork wise and design work is really cool. I like that kind of all the, not all, but a lot of the Eclipse Rebel group seems to be inspired by either Star Wars or Mad Max or other like existing rebels.
They look like the team that she gets put with do look like they come from like a thrash metal band or like a power metal band.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And the most important thing that none of us have mentioned is there's a pig with a big necklace on.
Oh,
yes, true. I did like that.
Pig obviously needs more page time.
We can all agree on that.
I think that goes without saying for the most part.
Such marks. We are such marks for a cute animal.
Yeah, anything slightly adorable.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's a character flaw amongst us as a group, but
no, it's like the one unifying factor we have in our love of comics.
Something squishy.
Needs more pigs in necklaces. Also, big fan of, is he called Yuki, who's like in 2 panels or something, who's just got.
He does have a monocle.
A yellow monocle and then one red eye. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
That's enough of a premise for a character for me. Monocle.
That's going to be cool.
Also, young person with a monocle. That tells you a lot about someone. Don't know
very
what.
much in the Liefeld school of comic storytelling.
Oh, don't worry. We'll get on to Liefeld later.
Will we?
Yes.
which of these did Liefeld?
I'm waiting for the context here.
Stay tuned to find out which one of us knows what's going on.
Oh, you'll figure it out when we get to the last book.
Okay.
And a particular character in that book.
Character being Rob Liefeld. No.
Yes.
I don't know. I back to whatever this is.
Yeah, the least we can do.
It's no secret at this point that I like Yolanda Zanfardino and Elisa Ramboli's books. I've read all of them at this point. At least I think I have. But I think this works. I think Will is correct, and it does a lot in 20, 30 pages, maybe 30.
Yeah.
We got 30-ish pages, I guess, with all the variant covers. I like that 2 of the variant covers are the same cover, just upside down.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the kind of crap I would have bought back when I was buying singles. But I don't know. I think this leans on a lot of what they've done before, but in a way that appeals to me. So fine, cool. I think it's kind of cute, kind of over the top, and that speaks to me.
Yeah.
Anyone got any more words to say, or are we all worded out? Or...
No, I think it sets up a fairly unique kind of fantasy world. And yeah, the writing and the arting is dead strong. So I think it'll continue to be real good. Just needs to sort of flatten out some of its storytelling, I think, and give a bit more time to some of the individual characters and flesh them out as well.
Yes. So on that note,
you ready to move on to Antioch? Written by Patrick Kinlan, arted by Marco Ferrari, letters by Jim Campbell, edited by James Hepplewhite, production design by Erica Schnatz. Maybe the most satisfying name to say in all of comics. Schnatz. And the third book from Image this week. This is the continuation to Frontiersman that I believe me and you, Zach, talked about
some months ago,
ages ago, but this time about the titular character Antioch, who is some sort of superpowered mystical king who seems to just travel the world destroying huge corporate endeavors that damage the environment.
He's the son of Pompeii.
He's the son of Pompeii, whatever that means, and also a king.
And people refer to him as caveman.
Yeah. There's a lot of there's various hints about who this character might be, but I've got to say this comic doesn't really provide a lot in that particular area. But we see a little bit of Antioch's sort of history. We catch up with Frontiersman following the original series, and we get a little bit of the character, well, at least one of the characters that was introduced in Frontiersman, sort of keeping the collective universe ongoing, and a big old punchy fight at the end. So good old superhero comics. I really liked Frontiersman, and therefore was kind of set up to really enjoy this. And I think for the most part I did. I think the art's really nice, very much a continuation of the Frontiersman art. But I found it quite confusing. I found sort of the pacing of it and how it kind of introduced particular ideas or events that were happening at the time to be sometimes quite sort of opaque and a bit tricky to follow. Overall, I've still kind of got faith that this book will turn out to be good based on my fandom of both Frontiersman and other Patrick Kinlan things that I've read and really enjoyed. But I've got to say, I think this, more so than The Least We Can Do, just throws sort of 100 ideas out, and it's kind of hard to follow what any of them are at this particular point. So, as Matt said earlier, we say this a lot, but this might be one for the trade.
As someone who is not up to date on Frontiersman, I've read some issues. I'm not up to date. I was probably even more confused.
I can imagine.
I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of ironic because at the end of it, it's like, if you're here from Frontiersman, hello, and all the rest of it, but also hello new people, because this is a jumping on point. I'm like, this is not a jumping point, this requires knowledge I don't have. So I'm glad that even people who are up to date on Frontiersman were slightly confused by this, because I was lost at sea, much like they are at points. I like some of the vague concepts going on, but I'm totally confused by... Yeah, I'm just confused. That's really where it is. One of the characters, I can't remember any of the characters' names apart from Antioch, which is really bad. But one of his little lackeys...
Limbs or Barstow?
Limbs.
Limbs is the trawlerman.
And
yeah, I like
Barstow's the
Limbs.
fish.
Yeah, I like those two. That's what I got out of that. I was like, oh, Limbs. I read this a couple of times. It didn't make any sense reading it again. In fact, it made it worse. I mean, the art's very good. It's all very actiony, adventure-y. Here's, look, put somebody blowing stuff up, and I'm there. So that was good. But yeah, I just found it really, really weird because I didn't really see the link between Frontiersman in jail and Antioch destroying corporate entities and such. So, yeah, visually it wasn't bad, but I don't know what it was about.
I think the only thing I could think of that really connects this and Frontiersman is the kind of environmental awareness angle.
Yeah. Like for
That's
Captain Planet to turn up.
Yeah, I mean he's got to be in the wings, right? It's not the most immediate connection between the two, and I did think this would have benefited from being a little bit more standalone as like an Antioch introduction. I like seeing Ethan, Frontiersman, whatever, and they did a one shot that came after Frontiersman that kind of explains him getting put in prison and being kept in holding, but that was like a regular prison, and then this shows him obviously in like super prison, which I think it's good to keep his story going, but I think it does detract here because it's such a busy issue. It does distract from the son of Pompeii kicking ass and stopping you doing stuff with oil and such, which it would have been nice to kind of just give a full issue of that before we check in with Frontiersman, I think. But I do agree that art is good, explosion's good, and Antioch seems like a cool character. I just don't know what his character is yet.
Yeah,
So
I agree with all of that.
I quite enjoyed this. And I similar to Angela, don't really have much of a background with Frontiersman, but I approached this as basically like reading a 40s, like 1940s, like Namor comic.
Definitely.
With a more sympathetic portrayal of his concerns. And I knew vaguely that Frontiersman is about environmental stuff within the context of like a superhero story, and this is the king of some like possibly like lost civilization, or like some ancient king return in the modern day, and seeing the sort of terrible situation we've left the planet, and having to come to terms with sort of the like what capitalism is and does. Sort of like when he's describing seeing like the logging camp, and like how like they find ways to profit on every level of the destruction. It turns out, I would like a sort of Namor eco-terrorist, like noble eco-terrorist book. Also, in the prison, the girl in like the prison uniform is the cutest. Like in like the prison officer uniform, looking out the window, I was like, I was like, how are you so adorable when you're dressed up and as like a prison warden? Like,
it's quite Studio Ghibli, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
Children in official positions.
Yes. I knew nothing really apart from the vague concept of frontiersmen going in, and quite liked it.
I just want to say, good lettering. Jim Campbell. That is all.
Oh, actually, to go back to Least You Could Do for just a second because of that, did we mention the lettering in regards to the onomatopoeias and stuff? Because like when someone uses their power and there's like a stop as a bubble, like a balloon in it and stuff. Yeah, just that reminded me to go back to that for a second because
Jim Campbell's top 5 level. Carry on.
You have to stand up for letters.
I think perhaps something that we've not mentioned for any of the books today is colouring, and I think the colouring in this is.
Oh yes, it is.
It is really nice in a lot of examples. I mean, just that bit with Frontiersman in the prison and all of his like very colourful villains, both literally and figuratively, and then that switches straight to like back to Antioch in the forest where things are really muted and like earthen tones. I think it does a really great job of setting the tone with a lot of the colour. But I think what Zach said earlier was right. Is I think we could have done without the sort of Frontiersman bit. Having Unicell in it was probably enough to keep it broadly connected, and we could have just picked up with that later on, I think.
Finally, I just want to say that where is it? You could maximize profits at a funeral is my favorite line in a comic book this week.
That is a good line.
It made me think of the Simpsons episode where like the hot dog seller keeps showing up. At the funeral, is at the is at the operating theatre, and it's like how like you keep following him. It's like, lady, he's putting my kid through college. Just made me think of the funeral thing.
Fair.
Excellent. But yeah, despite being a bit confusing, and I appreciate like they do go on in the back matter about this being sort of a good jumping on point, and that each of their titles is going to have a different name but continue. I'm not as convinced of that as an idea as they seem to be. Like, I think if you're not a pretty invested comic reader and you've read Frontiersman, there's very little to tell you on the front page of this that this is the next part of that story.
I think without having like a universe name or some kind of banner to put across the front cover. Yeah,
I think just to at least draw the attention of people. Like when we were first looking through the list of what to pick for this month, it didn't like cross my mind when I read that name that's what this was.
I agree, and until I saw it either in this or in the one shot, I had no clue that part of the Image anthology they're putting out every month for the anniversary also ties into this. No clue.
Yeah, I think it might be in the one shot or maybe in the back matter of this, but I read that as well, and yeah, that was absolute news to me.
Why can't I find it now?
So in terms of marketing is not necessarily, going super well. Sort of despite all of that, I'm still pretty sort of intrigued to see what happens next. I think it looks cool. I think just basic things like the script is pretty good and engaging. And I like the sort of environment thing. So despite my reservations of this particular issue, like I'm still pretty on board with this as a series.
Yeah.
I might read more and be less confused.
Bold words.
It's got me wanting to go and read Frontierman.
That if you were interested, that would be how I'd encourage you to do it.
You mean mine and Will's constant recommendation was not enough? How are the people at home meant to be convinced, Matt, if even you aren't?
Fair point.
The seeds of disquiet are sown. This night.
Content.
One will die. One
shall
will live.
we? Shall we go on then to our final book?
Yes, indeed.
I'll try and keep this brief. Good luck to me.
And I will. I will reveal the Liefeld, which I'm sure you'll like. I don't know how you don't get what I'm referring to.
I know what the Liefeld is, unfortunately.
You figured
I
it
think
out
I can
now.
guess. Yeah.
Yes.
But anyway, we'll leave that for Matt's wonderful reveal shortly. In the meantime, this is Bloodshot Unleashed #1 from Valiant, who are not Image. The writer is Dennis Camp. The artist is John Davis Hunt. The colorist is one of the hardest working colorists in comics, Georgie Belair. And the letterer is another top 5 name for you, Hassan Otsmane Allahu. So we've not had a Bloodshot book for a while. There was, Lemire's run, which was excellent. Then we had the deplorable Project Rising Spirit, which we don't speak of because it was god awful. They fortunately rested Bloodshot for a while. And this is Bloodshot Unleashed, which takes up things directly after the end of Lemire's run. We pretend Bloodshot Project Rising Spirit didn't happen. And to be honest, that's for the best. So this is, we start off with Bloodshot shooting himself in the head. This, I should point out, this is Valiant is marketing this as a mature book.
I should think so.
Which, as far as I can work out, basically gives them license to go all out with the gore. Let's have an entire panel just of brain matter. And you will like it.
I did.
Yeah.
You're talking directly to Matt, and you will like it.
Yes, and you will like it. So this is indeed much more gory. There are some quite, like I say, there's entire panels that just gore. They're just gore. So we pick up with Bloodshot, who is shooting himself in the head on a constant basis. What's happened to his wife and daughter is, well, we assume they've been killed, or I assumed they'd been killed. So I reviewed this for biggerthancapes.com, where you can find many reviews. And Dennis Camp, bless him, clearly read it and tweeted us that, don't worry about, because I did complain because fridging the love interest and the child, it's, let's create some man pain for our male character. I feel better about this because he's tweeted like, don't worry about it. I have a plan. This will make sense. I trust in Dennis. So all is well. But I like that he took the time to actually read my review and understand my concerns and actually respond to them. So, not all writers would do that. So thank you.
Oh,
but yeah, so he's basically, nobody turns up. That's the character's name. Nobody. Nobody's kind of gender ambiguous. They are sort of drawn a bit like that. And nobody comes basically with some files about some soldiers. And inevitably, as usual, the US government's fucked up and needs Bloodshot to clean up the mess. He's essentially there. There's these super soldiers who were created, and we put them in prison, and now they're angry and they've broken free and are murdering people in horrific ways, hence the mature rating. So it goes between then and now, and it quite handily shows you what's then and now. So then is going back to Bloodshot and getting the assignment and speaking to nobody. And then the now is basically him having a shootout with Lieutenant Robert Chambers, who is the first of these people whose file is the first one he reads.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shooties. There's explosions. It's all very actiony. I'm going to shout out to the colouring because we haven't been doing that. But the difference between sort of having Bloodshot in the apartment and then the now, and sort of it shows the passage of time through the colouring. So there's distinct sort of bits of colouring, like the sort of a red-brown feel to Bloodshot's apartment, and then the now goes from kind of a grey to when things hype up like a yellowy green. Which is really nice. I like that. It's also
like clearly in the aftermath of some like the apartment.
Oh yeah, the apartment's in horrific aftermath.
Thing, so it's like a good sort of smoky red sky.
Yeah, it's just really, the colouring's really nice, and also I like the panel work because there are a lot of panels on some of these pages. Let's pick a random page. What we got? 4, 8, 12, 15, 16 panels on one page, and some of them are quite small, but it works really well. I also like that although it's shooty, blow things up, and I said this in my review, there's actually a lot more going on there. There's some
is.
really strong character work here.
Yes.
There is some really interesting concepts as well with regards to patriotism and soldiers and all of that. So I really I think this is the strongest Bloodshot we've had since Lemire, which is admittedly a really low bar. But I really like it. I'm excited to see what is to come with this. Because I don't think it's just going to be a Bloodshot has a fight with the person and blows things up, and then there's blood and gore. But yeah, I really liked it. For my review, check out biggerthancapes.com. Plug over. Carry on, chaps.
I really liked this book, because it plays really well with it's very fun in its approach, in its violence. Like, it gives you a man covered in pouches, who has like a dimension of weapons in them, like any weapon you can imagine. Like, he can pull out these pouches, and they have a lot of fun with that. They actually use it to its to potential, and you see a lot of different ways to kill things horribly from this person. And he talks about being extreme fairly often. But yeah, that's not the main thing I like about this book. I really love, it's the Nobody's last few lines are great. And I don't want to say what they are.
Don't spoil it.
That's what I'm saying I'm not doing. Because they're great. But I love the character that Chambers, if they weren't also a monster themselves, what they're saying, some of it is very sympathetic. They're talking about basically the collapse of the American industrial heartland, the debt trap that the military uses to basically bring in young disenfranchised people as the only viable employer within their creates monsters and then discards them, and basically lies a sense of patriotism into you, only to kind of use it as fuel to turn you into something that then cannot come home. It's great. And watching Bloodshot, kind of having this whilst still managing to be doing horrible things to each other and be really interesting with it. It's great, and it's gorgeous, and it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you were correct. I think narratively and in the kind of the politics behind Chambers' character is really interesting and something that does feel quite authentic, because it is. I do like this. I think the writing and arts and colouring and lettering is all really strong when brought together. I agree with Angela that no magic and no Jesse kind of sucks, and I hope that is dealt with sooner rather than later. The constant jumping back and forth did annoy me, but apparently that's just how comics are sometimes, and it still annoys me.
Yeah, I gotta say I liked it, but
I think I hate. Sorry.
I have to say, it took me a couple of reads to be fully on board with that.
I think it just annoyed me because it was constantly the giant then. More than anything. Yeah, that annoyed me. Also, and this isn't a Dennis Camp or John Davis Hunt kind of problem. This is a Valiant problem. But I'm not going to let it go. Nobody really reminiscent of Diane Festival, who was last seen flying off with Kay McHenry, Deathmate, for a book they advertised. They gave me fucking Fred Van Lente's bullshit space book. What? Psylord?
Psylord.
I got that. But the characters I actually give a shit about, nah, they're floating off somewhere, probably with Magic and Jessie and all the other women in Bloodshot.
I had the same sense of disappointment. As soon as I saw Nobody, I thought, is it Festival?
Yeah, right.
It should have been Festival. Well, then it comes to me to finally be the voice of reason amongst you. This is not only the best Bloodshot I've read in a while, this is the best Valiant comic I've read in ages. I think this was excellent. I really enjoyed this.
You've not read enough of the recent stuff.
That's probably fair.
Exo was good.
Yeah, I haven't read any Exo, so that's, I mean...
better than Armorclads, aren't you?
It's certainly exciting if that's what you're holding up against something like this, because I really like this. Actually, some of the bits that you didn't, I really like. The then and now in multiple different versions felt like a kind of old sort of exploitation or Western film vibe. But I wholeheartedly agree that I think it's fun. It has a huge amount of depth in its storytelling. There's one page which has some interesting foreshadowing of a sort of little girl hallucination that Bloodshot doesn't quite see, which lays down potentially some groundwork for later on. I think the bad guy in this, what's he called? Lieutenant Robert Chambers, and his pouches are just real comic book fun, just really super daft. And it ends with, I mean, a flaming Bloodshot firing out the cabin of a huge industrial machine, and only then to prop Robert Chambers on top of a rocket launcher and just fire him into the sky. That's just good comics to me. But I feel this is a perfect number one. It gives you an absolute one and done story that none of the other books we've read today sort of provide that satisfaction conclusion. But also lays this groundwork of, like, there are others like him out there, which is a pretty simple and well trodden kind of plot line for comics, but it just gives you that basis which you can explore different bits about Bloodshot, I think.
And in different ways about the military industrial complex, the collapse of various parts of the social system. All sorts of interesting things. That's what I'm excited by what the next villain is, who's like a walking nuclear enabled robot, brain in a robot suit. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can say there.
Yeah, there'll be other reflections of Bloodshot and, as you say, reflections of other parts of society, and probably some commentary on various bits of America. But I just think based on this one issue alone, I just found it immensely readable and satisfying. And I say Bloodshot is a character, as you said, Angela, has been underserved for quite a while.
I think that's the thing, because we had Lemire's run, which was good because it turned him into more of a character and made him more interesting than just, here's a guy that heals and shoots things.
Well, that's always the risk, isn't it? That he's just Wolverine light. The
problem is I think that version of Bloodshot, the more thoughtful, reflective version, there is a hardcore of Valiant faithful, and I'm not going to say they're all men, but
it's all us.
It's all something. But guys who didn't like that iteration, they want the big shoot, gore, blood, which is fine. We all like a bit of blood and gore. And I think Valiant pivoted with Bloodshot Project Rising Spirit was to try and appeal to that core group. And I think this is also trying to appear to that core group. But what I like is that Dennis Camp is sliding in some of the actual other stuff, the stuff that I like about the more reflective Bloodshot. He's kind of sliding that in underneath all the violence and the gore. So I think this is a good approach. There's still questions about his family and all of that, and also Agent Festival. But hopefully we might get some answers down the line. I'm more optimistic about this than I am about other Valiant projects at the moment. So.
I totally see what you mean about like about that approach to writing Bloodshot and trying to kind of like it feels like a book that you can read multiple ways, like that you can read as the ha ha shoot shoot bang bang book because the action in it is great.
Yeah.
And you can also read it as like the haha shoot shoot bang bang book, but also it's clever, and it's got interesting ideas and really good character writing. Like, and it's and I hope that kind of that approach continues, and that we get to kind of have like, and that the excellent like character like approach character writing continues, and we see more of that kind of being snuck in until those people realize that they should like a thoughtful Bloodshot and go, oh wait, Bloodshot can do the haha shoot shoot bang bang and also be interesting.
Yeah, this should appease all audiences, I think. So what we're doing now, we're all picking a favourite?
Yeah. So like starting this one, we decided that rather than doing the rankings where we spend about half an hour each apologizing for not ranking a book higher and retreading everything we've kind of already said about 4 books, that we're going to do that about only 1 instead each, and just kind of give our favorite book our individual favorite book of the month. And my God, we've picked a hard one to do that on for me, because I liked like everything quite a bit. So that's why I took the difficult job of doing the explanation, so I didn't have to be the first one to pick.
I mean, I can pick first because we all know what it's going to be.
Go for it.
Which is Bloodshot Unleashed, because it is Valiant and I am contractually obligated to love all the Valiant. And I'm done.
Angela, for once, you're right. I think it is a tough decision. I enjoyed all of these books, but Bloodshot Unleashed was just basically the perfect first issue, and I think achieves that better than any of the other 3. I think it's open to new readers and sort of familiar readers. Art great, story great, good comics.
Zachary?
That's a good question.
What is a comic? Webster's Dictionary defines.
Out of the 4, I think Bloodshot is the best first issue. I think the art's really good, the writing is really good. I think all of my gripes with it come from existing Valiant issues, and I hope to see them dealt with in this run of Bloodshot. I think Rising Spirit was bad enough that I haven't read any Bloodshot since until this, because it was bad comics. It was very, very bad, and it didn't help that it was following a very, very good run. But this feels like it's being written by someone who has perhaps read the Bloodshot that's come before it, rather than just turned up and started writing some Bloodshot to try and appeal to, without being dismissive of a large part of the Bloodshot fan base, but a bunch of jackasses who just want to see a guy shoot some stuff, which it would be uninteresting as Wolverine, it would be uninteresting as Punisher, and it's uninteresting as Bloodshot. So I like that this has character work and something to say, as well as being man with gun coming out of pouches. So, yeah, good job, good Bloodshot. The first in like 5 years, so it's a pretty good achievement.
And I am ever the contrarian, going to disagree with myself and say it's Bloodshot. It's Bloodshot,
baby.
Credible first, like perfect first issue. Like the other books have a lot of promise, but I don't think I read as good a complete story as there was in Bloodshot #1. Like, it's just really solid comics writing, and like gets the art of the first issue to a T. It was almost Least We Can Do, but just that little bit of first issue-ness pushed Bloodshot over.
Yeah, did it for me.
I agree. I don't think any of these books are bad, though. I think
no, strong month.
Oh no, that's yeah. But like, if it's one where you can, I mean, just listen to what we've been saying about them. It's not a month where we've had anything that we felt awkward. Kind of we felt awkward dissecting. I wanted to talk about these books for another like 5 hours and say like, what do you think this could be? Like, where do you think this is going? Type of stuff.
When he shoots him up into the sky, do you think he dies before he explodes or
exactly?
Halfway down.
Yeah.
Can he get inside his own pouch and live in that dimension?
Oh God, turn himself inside out.
And more.
Turn himself inside out like he goes over the top of the swing.
I did legitimately question at one point of, if I had a pouch reality, I'd make sure I had an escape pouch. But
yeah.
I don't know, if Dennis Camp uses that, I am going to now claim that he got it from us.
Copyright. TM.
Yeah.
I have to mail it to myself.
Yeah.
Oh, we've not used that joke in
a while.
At least 3 months.
Yeah, months at least.
Now it's back for good.
I'll be saying it every week again. But yeah, good month for comics.
At least
new comics. There's been other good stuff. I know Angela was really into the first issue of the Lower Decks book, and I can't remember when we talked about that. And what's it called? The Stephen King, but it's not Stephen King anymore book.
Yes.
Creepshow.
Yay! That's the one.
Creepshow's pretty good. If you're into Creepshow, if not, it's probably just
the anthology like horror host.
Yeah, they're doing a reboot of it for Shudder. Is that what the?
Yes, they are. There's the horror streaming service.
Yes, and Image are doing like an accompanying comic.
Boy, I missed this.
Yeah.
Yeah, first issue came out a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty reminiscent of. I've not seen any of the show yet, but the comic's pretty reminiscent of the Romero King thing from the 80s.
I believe 80s.
Yeah.
80s feels right. So yeah, go read some comics. There's some good stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's...
Go read Chainsaw Man. The new chapter was incredible.
Okay.
Not like that one for a while.
So we've been bigger than capes. No, that's not what I say. We've been Angela, Matt, Will, and Zach, collectively bigger than capes. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.